Everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Bitter Pill. So, tonight I just wanted to do a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to just finish up what I was talking about the other night. If you were watching, when was it? Thursday night. I was about an hour and a half in, and all of a sudden my computer went bonkers. So, I lost my video and wasn't able to scroll around and show the clips that I wanted to, well, which I couldn't have done anyway because I lost the video. The audio went in and out. So, long story short, I was unable to properly finish what I was talking about the other night. And so I wanted to do that. And also, I wanted to just give some updates on what's been happening with protests the last couple of days around the country and what it all means. So let me just give people a couple of minutes to show up. In fact, I think I'm going to just remind people on X that I am live. I guess I've gotten used to calling it X, but it'll always really be Twitter to me. Anyway. Okay, looks like two people are watching over here. So. Okay, so one of the things that happened was you may have caught me doing a live walkabout in town around the protest area yesterday, I guess that would be. And shortly after I was there, like maybe 2 or 3 hours after I was there, they brought the police back out there and arrested some more people, took down the tents. And wait, was it Saturday? Maybe it was Friday. I can't remember. I'm sorry. Anyway, let me just. Yeah, Saturday. Okay. Let me just call up the news story on it. Okay, so it was Saturday. I was right the first time. And you can see the scene there. And just like they did Thursday, the first time they arrested people, Thursday there were 33 people arrested and the tents were taken down. And I guess a couple of students were suspended, a couple of faculty members as well. And this time they arrested another 22 people, I believe. Police and IU employees deconstructed the encampment and stood off with protesters until leaving around 1:20 p.m. Saturday. Okay, so I guess it was Friday when I went down there and talked to you guys, if you were listening then from there. At around 12:20 p.m., an IUPUD officer gave a warning to protesters that those arrested would be charged with trespassing and banned from campus. So, again, imagine this. You're paying thousands of dollars a year to attend college here at Indiana University in Bloomington, less than 2 miles from where I live. Paying thousands of dollars a year to have this as your home for 4 years or 5 years, I guess, if you're working on a PhD or whatever. And you're charged with trespassing on your own campus and then banned from campus for, like, I guess it was a year in most cases. There was one fellow who we'll talk about in more detail in a little while, who was banned from IU campus for 5 years, a grad student in a presumably 5-year PhD program. So they threatened them with arrested for quote unquote trespassing and being banned from campus if they didn't remove and vacate the tents within 10 minutes. IUPD Public Information Officer Hannah Skiba said in a statement that police gave several warnings to protesters to remove the structures, and those who did not comply were detained and removed. Protesters linked arms with each other to form a barricade between themselves and at least 60 Indiana State Police troopers armed with shields, batons, and other riot gear. One Indiana State Police officer had a police dog just to detect all the weapons that these protesters had, I guess. 5 minutes later, state police troopers began moving toward the encampment. When reaching the line, troopers began pulling and tackling those who did not move. 23 protesters were arrested, including one of the group's leaders, graduate student Bryce Green, who I'll talk about more in a little while. And by the way, once again, there were snipers, I guess this time 2 snipers, on the roof of the Indiana Memorial Union, which is the building adjacent to the field where the protest was held, Dunn Meadow, which as I might have mentioned before, this is like the traditional protest space here at Indiana University's campus. I've been to many a protest there, and including protests where we camped out overnight with tents, and we were left alone. Nobody bothered us. This happened in the early 90s during the first Iraq War. And it also happened, I guess, in the late 60s and 70s during the Vietnam War. At some point during that time frame, they had a tent encampment in Dunn Meadow. It also happened during the movement against apartheid, South African apartheid, during the 1980s. I wasn't at IU until 1989, but I was at Illinois, and of course, we had the same thing going on there. And, there was no massive police presence then or during the tent encampment in the Gulf War, the first Iraq War, when we set up a big giant tent again after the U.S. invaded Afghanistan. Again, they left us alone, But all of a sudden, it's a problem. All of a sudden, I think I mentioned to you that just in the middle of the night, Wednesday night, a small group of administrators, a president and others, got together and unilaterally, without consulting any faculty, which you're supposed to do, changed the regulations so that you could no longer pitch a tent in Dunn Meadow. And then Thursday afternoon, they rolled in. So anyway, this article about the Saturday police raid, Saturday military invasion of a peaceful protest. They say it was markedly more aggressive than Thursday's nearly 10-minute quote-unquote clash. Troopers aggressively moved through the line and established a perimeter in a few minutes. compared to a relative back and forth with protesters on Thursday. Those arrested were loaded onto an IU bus and blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right. Well, I mentioned that Bryce Green, a grad student here who's appeared on Electronic Intifada, a show that I highly recommend and a website that I highly recommend if you want to keep up with what's going on in Palestine. He also writes for Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, and I forget now what field he's in, but anyway, he's been a political activist ever since he was here as an undergrad in the 20 teens. And so let's have a look at what Bryce had to say about his arrest and so forth. He was just interviewed by George Galloway, the newly elected member of Parliament in the UK, or newly re-elected, I guess, member of Parliament in the UK, who's had his own talk show, mother of all talk shows, for many years. So let's have a look at what Bryce told George. Okay, let me see if I've got this so you can see it. There we go. Okay, I'm going to play like the first few minutes of this, dealing with just a summary of what happened to Bryson with the protests and some ideas about what it means and where it's going.
Now, Bryce Green was one of those arrested yesterday. I told you, all of our best guests have already been arrested in the American student protests. Let's see if he's been manhandled, if he's been mistreated. Bryce Green is an independent writer, political analyst, and contributor to Fairness. You're a bit in the shadow there for me, Bryce, so I can't tell if you're suffering any bruises. But tell us, please, what happened to you this weekend?
I'm not currently injured, but I can say that what happened this weekend, like in many areas around the country, was that heavy police force was used to crack down on a nonviolent protest. This Thursday, organizers at Indiana University put together a divestment coalition and declared an encampment in what is typically designated as the free speech zone at our university. And in keeping with the solidarity encampments going up all around the country, all around the world, we put up tents, we set up stations and had teach-ins and tried to make the space one of resistance and protest and understanding of Palestine and solidarity with those people. And for the crime of putting up a tent, the university, the police department, they rolled in there with not just armed goons. It's one thing to show up to a peaceful demonstration with a bunch of police officers. That's bad enough. But they called in state troopers with riot gear, with armored cars, with choppers in the sky, and they even had a sniper on the roof of the Memorial Union building overlooking the meadow. And again, this was just for peaceful protesters. None of the protesters were threatening police at all, but they were still met with such a heavy force. And all of the protesters we have found to be arrested are currently safe, although one has gone to the emergency room, per my sources, for injuries sustained while being arrested, but I don't have as many details on that. But I can say that the university is up in arms and that their administration is allowing this sort of behavior from its local police department and escalating all the way to the state police department to the point where they're pointing snipers directly at 20-somethings in a park with a tent. None of it makes sense, but it's not meant to make sense. It's meant to chill the speech of people fighting for Palestinian rights. It's meant to be a message and a warning that if you get out of line, if you try and get any ideas that maybe you don't want your institution to be complicit in genocide, or maybe that you want to take hold of your life and not be a part of something evil, then you need to shut up or meet a truncheon. And that's the message that the Israelis have been trying to impart on the Palestinians for decades. That's the message that America has been trying to impart on the world for decades. And that logic translates into institutions like universities, where the administration, which is just as political as any other organization and with that much power, the administration doesn't want to rock the boat. They understand where their bread is buttered. They understand that the path of least resistance is to continue supporting genocide, but they don't care. Regardless, the protesters have continued for several days. They were met with police violence again yesterday. The same getup. You had choppers, snipers on the roof. You had armored cars and riot police. And this is when I was picked up. And in fact, it seems clear based on police scanner recording that I was personally targeted for my organizing role. And they picked.
Yeah, I heard about this when I was talking. Well, I maybe you overheard it if you watched Friday when I was talking to a couple of protesters. Oh, no, maybe it was Friday night. Anyway, they said, yeah, on the no, it would have been Saturday. Sorry. I went over there after the arrest yesterday. Anyway, they told me that people had overheard the police talking on the police radio. Yeah, let's arrest that guy and that black guy with the big fro. He's a leader. We need to take him off to jail. So they were targeting Bryce, no doubt about it. And they were targeting him because the administration wanted him targeted.
Picked me up, arrested me, processed, booked, and I received a 5-year ban from the university's campus in Bloomington, Indiana.
Let's play that again.
They picked me up, arrested me, processed, booked, and I received a 5-year ban from the university's campus.
A 5-year ban from IU's campus for Sniper on the Roof is insane. Reminds people of Charles Whitman in 1966 in Texas. Interesting story about that. My grad school advisor was a new faculty member at University of Texas back when that happened, and they had a hideout in the basement of the psychology building when Whitman was up there in Texas Tower shooting at people. But of course, what it reminds most people of, not that it doesn't also remind people of that, is Kent State in was it 1971, where the cops just came in to a anti-Vietnam War protest and just started shooting at people. Wounded, I don't know, like 20 or something, and killed 4. Folks got wind of there being, or actually people saw that there was a sniper on the roof during the first arrest, and people got captured on video. The snipers, again, going toward the roof for the Saturday arrests. And it has been confirmed at Ohio State that it was, in fact, a sniper. These Zionists like to deny that people on their side do anything wrong and tried to claim that, it wasn't a sniper, it was just a guy taking pictures. But it has been confirmed that it was a sniper. And of course, you can clearly see in the footage, the video and stills, that there were snipers, or there was a sniper on the roof at IU both Thursday and Saturday. Yeah, this Me Too Big says this student was not pulling down statues, throwing rocks, spray painting, etc. How is it constitutional that he has been banned for 5 years? On what charges? Well, as far as I know, he's been charged with trespassing at his own university. There might be another charge. I'm not sure. Bryce didn't say that I heard in this interview if there were any other charges. There might be more details in the Indiana Daily Student, the Indiana Student newspaper. But in any case, yeah, it's insane. And I don't think they're going to get away with it. It just, as Bryce was saying, or maybe he hasn't said yet. I listened to the whole interview and I only played part of it for you. But he said, this is just stupid if they care anything at all about their own or the university's long-term interests. Faculty have said, look, basically this is just created this massive rift between the staff and the students at Indiana University. He might have a scholarship, but somebody's paying for him to be there, and it's his home, or at least it was until Saturday. But hopefully it'll get. I mean, there's got to be a lawsuit coming out of this. I can't imagine that there won't be. And same with other places around the country. Okay, so that's what's been going on at Indiana. I was just over there again this evening, and I said, as I said, I was yesterday evening, and there's still tents up there. That even though they've arrested people and taken down the tents twice, not as many people there tonight as there were last night. I think there were maybe 75 there last night. There were well over 100 yesterday, and probably 500 when I talked to you on this channel Friday. But the exam week is this coming week, so that might have something to do with the turnout. And some people have been banned from campus, and some people have perhaps been intimidated from protesting further, or maybe they just need to study for their exams. I don't know. But anyway, lots else has been happening around the country. As I started to tell you about before my computer went completely haywire, there have been a number of just ridiculous attempts to smear the protesters by the Zionist trolls in the media and so on and so forth. Certainly, Kirsten Gillibrand, Senator Gillibrand, who's always got, stupid things to say about this or that. She says, "I'm deeply disturbed by the appalling anti-Semitism being displayed on Columbia University's campus. Threats of violence against Jewish students are absolutely despicable, and this appalling rhetoric must end now. Our Jewish friends and neighbors deserve the right to live and worship in safety here in New York and all across America." And of course, she can't. People keep asking her, "Can you give any examples of this supposed anti-Semitism?" And of course, she can't, or won't. But as I talked to you about last time, obviously, as you well know, there are several national Jewish groups, if not now, Jewish Voice for Peace. There's a third one that's also doing a lot of organizing. Huge protests, consisting of exclusively Jewish people, such as protest in front of Senator Chuck Schumer's house the other day. And Jewish activists are very heavily involved, certainly in New York, where there's a large Jewish population, in the organizing on campus, and certainly Jewish people are in other places as well. But you wouldn't know that from these smears against people. Let's see. I thought I had a picture here to show you, but I'll have to look for another one. Okay, here we go. Yes. So this Zionist smear merchant, of course, is amplifying this alleged counter protest to the counter protesters. So you have a bunch of Zionist idiots waving their Israeli flags across from the Columbia University protesters. And there's this person here, let me pause it, with her face wrapped up like she's a mummy or something in a keffiyeh, holding a sign with an arrow pointing in the direction of the protesters that says Al-Qassam's next target. So I don't know how well you can read it, but the Al-Qassam is the military wing of Hamas. Everybody just calls it Hamas, but technically the largest armed group of Palestinians in Palestine is Al-Qassam, which is the military wing of Hamas. And this woman has Al-Qassam misspelled on her sign. She has it as Qasum instead of Qassum. So that suggests there might be something a little suspicious about the authenticity of this supposed counter protester, implying that it would be good if there were violence against Israeli or Zionist counter protesters at Columbia. Now, obviously, the organizers at Columbia repudiated this protesters' sign, and I would surmise probably questioned her authenticity as well. Am I showing this to you? Darn it! Oh no, I'm not. I'm sorry. Let me show this to you. Share this tab instead. That's what I should have done. Okay, so there's her sign. It says Al-Qassam's next targets with an arrow pointing in their direction. So how the hell did she know they were going to be there? Is one question I have. I mean, I suppose somebody could have quickly written up a sign to point at them, but why bother? From what I've seen, both of footage of the protests around the country and comments that people have made about the approach of their protests, they're really committed to just not interacting with the counter protesters as best as they can. They just try to ignore them. And I've seen that when I've visited and talked to people at the IU encampment. So I am guessing, I would bet money on this person being a false flag, falsely protesting against these people with flags by threatening them. I don't think that's a real pro-Palestine protester. Oh, Me Too Big says that sign she was holding confused me. I thought she was saying that she would be the victim. Well, I mean, it's got an arrow pointing behind her, and it does say targets with an S. So I knew what she meant, but it just seems really fishy to me. I question the authenticity of this. And okay, let's suppose that it was an authentic pro-Palestine person. It doesn't represent the sentiments at all of a vast majority of people who are, protesting against Israeli genocide and apartheid, and it certainly doesn't represent the consensus of the organizers. And as I think that, well, as you saw if you watched when I went over to IU campus and did a live stream with my phone the other day, that and this is true at other protests as well. They told me there that they had decided as a group not to talk to the press, so they, I couldn't talk to them then about the protest or anything. I did talk to other people later when I wasn't doing a live stream. But they want their message to the public to come from, of course, from their demonstration, but from their spokespeople, where they've decided based on consensus what to convey to the public. That seems like a sensible approach. So anyway, as you might imagine, this was far from the only psyop. So this woman at Yale, this Jewish Zionist, claims tonight, a week ago it was, at Yale, I was assaulted by a student at an anti-Israel protest. He stabbed me in the eye with a Palestinian flag. Now I'm in the hospital. This is what happens when visibly Jewish students try to attend and document these rallies. There wasn't really anything visibly Jewish about her that I saw. I mean, she wasn't carrying a Israeli flag or anything like that. And this alleged eye stabbing, mysteriously, she was interviewed on Piers Morgan just within a few hours, and she seemed fine then. And there was video of the incident. And I'm not even, you can't really, this is not the woman, obviously. Okay, I guess it happened. You're right there. Somebody walked by with a flag, and there was a woman, this woman, standing nearby, and she goes, "Ow! You stabbed me in the eye!" And the guy was just, walking by and inadvertently, hit her in the face, probably pretty softly with the flagpole. She wasn't injured or anything. There was no evidence whatsoever that she was significantly hurt. And she claimed, "Oh, they stabbed me in the eye because I'm Jewish." Well, lady, how the hell do you know that he wasn't Jewish? There are a lot of Jewish people at the protests, and in any case, they didn't even interact with her; they just ignored her. Like the lady that I showed you the other day, she thought she could get a rise out of people by standing in the middle of the quad near the protest, wearing a shirt that said Jew on it, and then an Israeli flag on the back. And people were mostly just ignoring her, and a few people were just looking at her like, "What are you doing?" And then people got in back of her with a sign that said something like "Jews for Free Palestine." So it was really quite a cell phone, and she and her husband, who he made the video, and they wound up taking the post down because it was such an embarrassment that hardly anybody supported them. So these smears are generally not working. There's one more I wanted to show you about. This was at Northeastern University. Okay, so somebody from Northeastern University, which is in Boston, said, in reference to an incident where someone at the pro-Palestine protest on Northeastern University's campus, somebody who was there who actually was holding an Israeli flag, so obviously not part of the protest, yelled out, "Kill the Jews." And so a bunch of people jumped on this and claimed that these protesters at Northeastern University were anti-Semitic. And of course, that was completely false. The guy who yelled it and tried to encourage other people to yell it along with him was holding an Israeli flag. So, he obviously wasn't one of the protesters. And, of course, he was booed and told to leave and so forth. So they certainly didn't go along with it. But again, this spokesperson for Northeastern University tried to imply that this had something to do with the protest. So she says, Renata Newell says, the fact that the phrase "kill the Jews" was shouted on our campus is not in dispute. Nobody's disputing it, dumbass. The Boston Globe, a trusted news organization, reported it as fact. There is also substantial video evidence, which shows that it wasn't one of the protesters. Any suggestion that repulsive anti-Semitic comments are sometimes acceptable, depending on the context, is reprehensible. That language has no place on any university campus. So again, the context is that it was somebody who was not one of the protesters. That's the context. And of course it's relevant. But so anyway, this was then used, this claim, this false claim that one of the protesters had said something anti-Semitic, or that the protesters in general had said something anti-Semitic, was used as an excuse by the Northeastern University administration to bring in the cops and arrest people and take down their tents and try to shut down the protest. So just despicable dishonesty on the part of the Northeastern University administration, and of course on the part of all these right-wing commentators who referenced the incident. So far as I know, Northeastern University is still protesting. Well, speaking of Jewish people involved in Palestinian solidarity protests, Dr. Jill Stein, presidential candidate with the Green Party, was in St. Louis, Missouri, at Washington University's encampment yesterday, and she and more than 100 other people were arrested, held at St. Louis County Jail for about 5 hours, and like they weren't doing anything. They were just standing there, but they basically arrested everybody they could reach, pretty much, whether or not they were known to be involved in organizing the protest. Not that there's anything wrong with that, of course, or were in or had a tent or anything like that. They just rounded up people randomly, and Jill was one of them. And apparently they were kind of rough with them. Let's see, verse. The cops shoved a bike at Jill while they were arresting her. Just trying to bruise her up. Medea Benjamin from Code Pink was also physically assaulted at the protest outside the White House Correspondents' Dinner in D.C. yesterday, where hundreds of people, maybe it was over 1,000, were protesting against the corporate media shills who were attending this dinner, who, of course, totally whitewash what's happening in Gaza, don't talk about Julian Assange, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, so Medea was shoved around and bruised pretty badly based on what she said. So here's Jill's statement about the protests. So I already covered, what happened. Most of those arrested were Washington University students. And by the way, they keep trying to say that people at these protests are, outside agitators or paid protesters, or paid by Russia or something, crap like that. And it's just complete bullshit. I mean, I can't prove it, obviously, but judging by their apparent age, the vast majority of the protesters at the IU demonstration were, college students. And, of course, those of us who are older have every right to be there, too. And just because we're, from the community, or, some faculty members were there, obviously, that doesn't mean that they're not, legitimate protesters. So anyway, the demand from the encampment was specifically for the university to divest from Boeing, which manufactures munitions used in the ongoing genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza at their nearby St. Charles facility. The Stein campaign supports the demands of the students in their peaceful protests and assembly on campus. Student protests for peace and civil liberties has always represented the best part of our collective moral conscience, solidarity. And you gotta love Jill. Every time she's run for president, I think she's been arrested. I think in 2012 she was arrested for trying to just attend the presidential debate, which she was barred from participating in because they don't like third-party candidates to be there. She was arrested at Standing Rock in 2016, and also at the debates, I think. And here she is again, protesting for Palestinians' rights. So good for her. And certainly, there are other good candidates as far as this issue. Cornel West and Claudia de la Cruz certainly support Palestinian rights wholeheartedly. They'll probably get arrested at some point too. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. Okay, another place that I believe I talked about the other day, Southern California, University of Southern California, where earlier this month, the university administration discovered, much to their chagrin, that the valedictorian of the graduating class at Southern California was Palestinian, a Palestinian American. I think American, but anyway, and she was an activist in the Palestinian solidarity protests, and had written about it and so forth. So they didn't want her to speak. So they told her that her valedictory speech at the University of Southern California graduation was canceled. She couldn't give it. And probably as they thought about this, they realized how chaotic the graduation ceremony would be likely to be if they went through with it, and they had banned the valedictorian from speaking. So they just decided to cancel the ceremony. I guess they have satellite ceremonies for different schools at the university, different programs, but the main ceremony was canceled. And of course, they tried to repress the protests. So they threatened to arrest people, and they claim that the president of the university attempted to meet with organizers multiple times. This is the student newspaper, the Daily Trojan, which doesn't sound like it's nearly as sympathetic to the protesters as the Indiana Daily Student, the student newspaper here is. So they claim that the president of the university attempted to meet with the organizers of the protest multiple times, but the organizers refused to meet with them. Protesters will have until Sunday to have a more reasonable response before the university takes more drastic action, the statement read. And so a faculty member who was there throughout the protests, law professor at USC, says, "This is another brazen lie. I was with students throughout the day, and President Folt never attempted to meet with students. It's shocking how willing this administration is to outright lie to try to affect public perceptions about their utter incompetence." And this is a perception that the impression that people all over the country at these various universities are getting. At Columbia, at Indiana, at Southern Cal, Northeastern, etc., that their administrations are dishonest and corrupt. They're willing to lie about anything, and they're just utterly incompetent. They go out of their way to alienate their students. I think I may have mentioned to you the other day that here at IU, efforts by the president of the university, Dr. Pam Whitten, to repress the activism in solidarity with Palestinians, totally, as long as she's been here, but especially after October 7th. So there was an art exhibit by a Palestinian student that they just decided out of the blue to cancel just because she was Palestinian. And then, as I was mentioning the other day, they tried to bring Miko Peled to campus. Miko Peled wrote a famous book called A General's Son, where he talked about how he went from being a career officer in the Israeli military, gung-ho Zionist, to then not so gung-ho Zionist, as his own family started to question things. His dad and his grandfather, and who were both in the military and high-ranking officials, and then he totally turned against it, moved to the United States, and he's been an activist for Palestinian liberation ever since. So anyway, this professor, let's see if I can find Bryce's article on this. I don't have it called up. Anyway, so Bryce Green wrote a great summary piece of events at Indiana, over the last 6 months. Hey, I think I. Yeah, here we go. Article in the Electronic Intifada by Bryce Green, the guy who George Galloway just interviewed that I showed you a little bit of earlier. He just talks about what all's been going on. Well, this was published in January, but a lot happened until then. So the Indiana administration suspended a tenured faculty member named Abdul Qadir Sinno, just for arranging Miko Pelled's talk. Sinno booked the event, the room for the event through his department, but 2 days before Pelled was scheduled to speak, the university pulled a reservation, citing alleged mistakes on the submitted form. The university refused to provide another room for the organization due to what it said were security concerns, which is exactly one of the excuses they use. It's more safety concerns is one of the excuses they use for cracking down on the tent encampments, even though lots of protesters have had such encampments on colleges' campuses for years and years and years. The talk proceeded in a different space and was an enormous success, but university administration launched an investigation into Sinno over the, quote, unauthorized event and suspended him until fall of 2024, this coming fall semester. There's good reason to suspect that Sinno's targeting has less to do with minor bureaucratic formalities and more to do with his role in assisting movements for justice on campus. So students are getting in trouble just for peaceful protests. The most that's happened is that at University of Southern California, a number of students did some, and also at Humboldt University, I think, a number of students put some graffiti up around campus. Like there was those graffiti on a statue at at UCLA, I think it was, and put up a Palestinian flag on top of the statue and stuff like that. Meanwhile, and then there were these made up incidents, basically, of quote unquote anti-Semitism. And meanwhile, let's see. This is what happens if you're a university student in Palestine or in Gaza, at least. That's what they do to. That's what they've done to all the universities in Gaza. They're all gone, none left, and a lot of the students, of course, are dead as well because Israel's been carpet bombing Gaza for 6.5 months. So it really puts into perspective, how whiny these Zionist students here in the United States are. They're complaining that they feel unsafe on campus. Well, how fucking unsafe do you think college students in Palestine feel, huh? there haven't been any incidents of violence against them. Not even, as far as anybody knows, not even any threats from campus protesters. And meanwhile, Palestinian Americans are often targeted for harassment. Some of them have been assaulted. One has been killed. So, I mean, who is in danger here? Certainly not Jewish Americans who support Israel at this point. You're a lot more likely, if you're a Jewish American, to face physical violence if, of course, you're one of the protesters, because there have been a number of incidents where the police have roughed people up or used tear gas at Emory University. They even shot in Georgia. They even shot rubber bullets at the protesters. So, and of course, although nobody obviously was shot, it's certainly is intimidating if you're a protester at Indiana or at Ohio State to have police pointing guns at you. But one thing that should I play this for you? Maybe I'll look for this and play it for you. One thing that Bryce. Oh, where is her Secret Service protection in reference to Jill Stein? That's a good question. I think you have to, poll above a certain percentage to get Secret Service protection. I'm not sure about that. I think that's the case. But, well, I certainly wouldn't trust the Secret Service to protect a presidential candidate who was opposed to U.S. foreign policy to the extent that Jill Stein is. From one perspective, it seems just it doesn't make sense, seemingly, that campus and college administrators would take such a hard line against these protesters. But on the other hand, I forget where I saw it, or I would show it to you, but I read that Indiana University, in the town where I am, has $100 million invested in Israeli government bonds. They also have a multi-million-dollar contract with Crane Naval Base, about 30 miles from here, where they test weapons and make weapons, some of which wind up, or I guess they test weapons. Somebody else makes them, but a lot of them wind up in Israel, of course. And just all kinds of investments in companies that do business with Israel. Probably some weapons contractors in there, as I mentioned. WashU in St. Louis has their big contract with Boeing, obviously a major defense contractor. But in any case, so billions and billions of dollars invested by dozens of universities in companies that do business with Israel, or with the Israeli government itself. There are exchange programs between students at various campuses and Israel, academic cooperation. So there are a lot of connections between universities and Israel. And the same thing was true, of course, with South Africa, apartheid back in the 80s, big protests against that back when I was in grad school. And, ultimately they were successful. things didn't necessarily come up roses in South Africa. They still have a lot of problems in that country, but they are free from apartheid that ended in 1994. The 30th anniversary of its ending was just the other day. So yeah, it took roughly, I don't know, 10 years from when the anti-apartheid protests really ramped up here in the United States and in other parts of the world, and the end of apartheid. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I think Israel is running on borrowed time here. One thing that they've done that the South African government didn't do, of course, is commit genocide on this colossal scale. Thinking that they would be able to crush Palestinian resistance once and for all, and it's not working out for them. They are getting their butts kicked basically in Gaza. You're constantly getting attacked, and that's not to say that there aren't also a lot of armed Palestinian resistance fighters being killed too, but they're inflicting a lot of damage on the Israeli military. Hezbollah is, Iran has demonstrated they're capable of doing so. Shipping traffic through the Red Sea has been, at least that destined for Israel, has been kind of ground to a halt by the Yemenis. And then there's lots of other armed resistance groups in Palestine besides the one associated with Hamas. There's armed resistance going on in the West Bank too, not just in Gaza. There are groups in Syria and Iraq that can reach Israel with missiles and have done so. And just militarily and economically, Israel is in a very bad place. And politically, the world is turning more and more against them by day. My understanding is that the International Criminal Court is soon to issue arrest warrants for Netanyahu and his gang. Not that they have any power to enforce that, but how long is it going to be the case that these various powers that be are going to want to continue to be complicit in genocide? A number of countries have stopped sending weapons to Israel. I know Canada has done so. And a number of countries, Canada, Germany, and I'm not sure where else, several others, have reversed their decision on funding UNRWA, the UN relief agency that provides the majority of the humanitarian aid into Gaza. Unfortunately, hardly any of that's getting in right now, but I guess it has gotten a little less bad. And there's even talk that Israel is on the verge of realizing that the jig is up, that they can't beat Hamas, and that the longer this goes on, the worse their situation will be militarily, economically, and politically. So obviously, the job of those of us here in the United States is just to keep the pressure on our own government, our own institutions, such as colleges and universities. And I think ultimately we will win. And I was going to read you a quote. Not remembering where I had it here. So many links. Oh, here it is. Howard Zinn, certainly one of my favorite activists, had this to say during the height of the Vietnam War movement. He said, they'll say we're disturbing the peace. Basically, what they're accusing these college students here at Indiana University and all around the country are doing, they're making things unsafe or unpeaceful or whatever. And, I've been to the protests here on campus a number of times. It's very peaceful. But Howard says they'll say we're disturbing the peace, but there is no peace. What really bothers them is that we are disturbing the war, and I think that's a great sentiment to end on. We are disturbing their war and their genocide, and we will win. It's hard to say when at this point, but we are going to win this battle. So keep fighting, and keep hope alive, as they say, and we will emerge victorious. All right, well, that's all I've got for you tonight, and I'll probably continue to be obsessed with this issue, as long as genocide is going on, and I'll keep tabs on what's happening here on campus and elsewhere around the country. And I know I haven't talked much about what's going on in Palestine itself lately, but I'll get back to that some. But anyway, take care, and I will see you next time.